when he ran for president in 2012. But it was also part of a larger pattern for him. Newt Gingrich had built up a career as kind of a celebrity politician con artist. And he used his presidential campaign as part of that scam, as just a way to make more money for himself, get his name out there, make sure that he could cash in further on what used to be a public service career. Last night on this show, right at the end of the show, we reported on the new financial documents that the Donald Trump for President campaign had just reported to the FEC. And we got it was a little embarrassing. We got those numbers when I was live on the air, and we didn't have time, like, as a staff to process them. I just read them from the raw report right after that raw report was posted on the FEC website while we were live on the air. And I will tell you honestly, the reason I'm furrowing my brow in that footage you can see there is because while I was doing that breaking news story, I felt like maybe I had gotten it wrong. I felt like there was maybe a typo or a misunderstanding, or maybe my vision's going because I'm an old person now and I couldn't see a decimal point that I should have been expecting. It just seemed impossible that the Republican presidential nominee would have started the month of June with only $1 million cash on hand. That is a remarkably low number for any stage of any serious presidential race. I mean, for the month of May, that number is still, even in the light of day, almost impossible to believe. Think about it. Donald Trump wrapped up the Republican nomination in the first week of May. He won Indiana on May 3rd, and all of his opponents dropped out. He wrapped up the nomination on the third day of the month. That means he had the whole rest of the month with no Republican primary to worry about. The only thing he had to do the whole month was start socking away money and preparing for the general election campaign against Hillary Clinton. And he ended that whole month with $1 million? The cash on hand numbers from the Donald Trump campaign that came in at the end of the show last night, those numbers were very hard to believe. But now, over the course of today, we've been able to go through not just his cash on hand numbers and his fundraising numbers, but also his spending numbers. And those are also amazing, but they tell a very different story. And we should probably not see them as so surprising because we've seen something like this before. Over the course of the month of May, the Trump campaign spent a total of $6.7 million. More than $1 million of that was spent paying money to Donald Trump's own companies and to members of his family. And that is apparently nothing new for the Donald Trump for President effort. We now know that that pattern has basically held for the entire Trump campaign so far. If you want to look at the entire course of his campaign, the Washington Post and the Associated Press today totaled up over $60 million that has been spent by the Trump campaign. More than $6 million of that, so roughly $1 in $10 spent in total on the campaign, more than $6 million of that has been spent buying stuff from Donald Trump. He has spent an incredible proportion of his campaign funds writing, for example, rent checks to himself for use of his own properties. He paid the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida, $29,715. He paid the Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida, $35,845. You know, when Donald Trump lives in Florida, the place he lives is a golf club called Mar-a-Lago. That is Donald Trump's house in Florida. His campaign paid over $400,000 to Donald Trump for use of his own house. He paid himself $400,000 for the privilege of using his own home. He paid $520,000 to Trump Tower, which is his home in New York. He paid $135,000 to Trump restaurants. That's a lot of taco bowls. He paid $26,000 to the Trump National Doral, which is his golf course in Miami. He paid $11,000 to his Trump Hotel in Chicago. He has paid himself over $4 million for the privilege of renting his own private jet. The Trump Plaza, $99,000. The Trump Post Office, which is his hotel in Washington that's not yet built, $5,000. Trump Soho, just under $5,000. He paid his son's Trump Wine Company just under $5,000. He spent campaign money on the Trump Grill, on Trump Ice. Trump Ice is a thing. He spent Trump money at the Trump Cafe. And part of the mainstream Republican beef with this data, right, with what we now know about how the Trump campaign is operating, is that these are not the kinds of expenditures you would expect to see from someone who's actually running a campaign for president that intends to win the presidency. I mean, the expenses, when you look at what the Trump campaign is actually spending its money on, what they're actually spending their time doing, it's more like a concert tour. It's more like a promotional tour for a celebrity who's hawking something than it is like a campaign where you need people to go out and vote for you in November. I mean, the biggest expenses are private jets, renting out venues, preferably ones where Mr. Trump gets to pay rent to himself for using that venue, and also swag. You know, you go to a concert, there's the swag table. Merchandise is what the Trump campaign is spending its money on. Millions of dollars spent on Trump t-shirts and especially Trump hats. Oh, the hats. Reading through the list of Trump expenditures, I half expected to find that there was now a Trump hat company that they had formed in order to cash in on all the hat spending the Trump campaign has indulged in over the past year. In fact, there is no Trump hat company, but there is this nice lady who sits on the board of Eric Trump's charitable foundation. She also happens to run the hat company, getting all those millions of dollars in Trump campaign expenditures. So, the polite way to say this is, it's a racket. It's not designed to necessarily win the election. I don't know if it would be necessarily a problem to win the election. Think about the merchandising opportunities in the Oval Office. But if he does end up winning, you can tell from the way the campaign is being run. And you can tell because we've seen lots of campaigns like this before, you can tell that winning might happen, but it's not the aim. It would be a byproduct of what is the principal effort, which is to make money. Donald Trump is not the first person to do this. This is what Newt Gingrich did in 2012. Frankly, it's easier to do on the Republican side because of the monetizing of Republican and conservative political celebrity, thanks to Fox News and lots of scammy right-wing media outlets in this country. That's part of the reason that Republican presidential fields are so big these days. I defy you to tell me what the job is of Rick Santorum. What is his job, other than running for president? Or what's Herman Cain's job? What's Michelle Bachmann's job? What's Mike Huckabee's job? They're all either making a living running for president, or they're making a living thereafter off the fact that they did run for president once, and therefore you've heard of them. It's a racket. The real question for the country, I mean, that's a question for the conservative movement and the Republican Party and conservative media, right? Like, what have we created? A weird system of incentives where people appear to run for office, but mostly they run for office as a job because it helps them make merchandising money and get deals on Fox News, right? I mean, that's an issue for the Republican Party, the conservative movement, conservative media in general. Put that aside. The real question for the rest of us, for the country, is whether what we're now looking at on the presidential level, now that one of these guys is their nominee, the real question for the country is whether this book tour, this promotional tour for this political celebrity might accidentally produce a presidential candidacy that can actually win. And that remains to be seen. But honestly, these new spending numbers put to rest any question that what we are witnessing is anything other than a promotional book tour, which we should have realized from the very beginning, because this is what it sounded like from the very beginning.
President Obama, Secretary Kerry, I highly think you should read this book quickly. Quickly!
Did you ever see a negotiation last so long? Right? Oh, he's got the art of the deal. Hold that book up, please. Okay. One of the great books.
I wrote The Art of the Deal. I wrote many bestsellers like The Art of the Deal. Everybody read The Art. Who has read The Art of the Deal in this room? Everybody. I always say, a deep second to the Bible. The Bible is the best, the Bible.
And I've done great things. Hey, look, I went into television, had The Apprentice. Great hit, one of the most successful reality shows, right? I did books, many bestsellers, many. The Art of the Deal is one of the biggest selling, certainly the biggest selling business book of all time, by far. Oh, look, The Art of the Deal. Come here, give me that book. I love that book.
We should have known from the beginning when Donald Trump was hawking one of his business books at all of his campaign appearances from the very, very start of his presidential campaign. Since then, he's come out with another book that he's been selling openly on the campaign trail, the one with the scowling picture on the front, Crippled America. There are also now, and I may be breaking this news right now, but there are unconfirmed reports, but there are reports that there is either an Art of the Deal 2.0 that's in the works right now, that's in production right now, or that Mr. Trump is somehow repackaging the original Art of the Deal, again, as a special campaign edition, so he can literally cash in even further during this campaign. So these new spending and fundraising numbers out for Donald Trump, they bear no resemblance to someone actually running a serious campaign for president. The Washington Post described top Republicans as viewing these new numbers with both, quote, astonishment and alarm over what they've gotten themselves into with Trump. But apparently the only thing that top Republicans are concerned about is the size of his fundraising numbers and his cash-on-hand numbers. They're worried about his lack of fundraising. They're worried about his lack of spending on a real campaign. They're worried about that not only for Trump's own presidential effort, but also for its knock-on effects for Republicans running up and down the ballot and across the country. Republicans, though, broadly, are apparently less worried about the scammy aspects of Donald Trump's campaign financials, which are on full display today. And still on full display today, not just from this FEC filing, but from the desperate fundraising appeal that the Trump campaign sent out as soon as this terrible financial filing went live last night. This fundraising email that they just sent out it's signed by Donald Trump, and it says in all caps, underlined for effect, that this is the first fundraising email that Trump has sent out. Quote, that's right. It actually says in the letter, that's right. The first one. Sure sign, right? Whether it's a Nigerian prince or Newt Gingrich wanting to give you an award, anything all caps and underline that says that's right next to it, sure sign of a scam. Should always be greeted with great suspicion. If you get that online and it's a hyperlink, do not click. And so, that's right. This is the first one. Of course, this is not the first one. This is not the first fundraising email from the Trump campaign. That part of it is a very clear, all caps underlined lie. This is the Trump fundraising email that went out this weekend, claiming that the Trump campaign had an emergency goal of $100,000 to get ads on the air. Before that, it was another Trump campaign fundraising email signed by Donald Trump with a little picture of him next to his name in case you forgot what he looks like. Make an investment right now to stop crooked Hillary. Before that, it was another one that he sent out on June 3rd. Subject line, Hillary is a liar. Together we will make America great again, exclamation point. Thank you very much, exclamation point. Let's make America great again, exclamation point. Picture, Donald J. Trump. And that's not even all of them. But after all those and others, the Trump campaign today sent out a fundraising email saying, you know what, we have never sent out a fundraising email before. And they said, if you act now, every contribution will be matched up to a $2 million limit by Donald J. Trump himself. Seriously, that is actually part of the new fundraising email. They're trying to make it sound like an NPR fund drive, but without the book bag. Pretty soon they're going to be tacking on reverse mortgages and referrals to personal injury lawyers and kids' books about campaign workers in furry costumes. Donald Trump told Lester Holt just last month that he was going to raise over $1 billion to run for the presidency. Well, we now know that as late as May of the election year, he was only raising $3-point-something million a month, and he was spending more than he was raising. He spent more than he raised in May. And a significant portion of what he spent on himself and his children. And so, again, quoting the Washington Post, top Republicans are apparently viewing this with astonishment and alarm. The question is what they're going to do about it.